Hello and welcome back to another video for Final Fantasy XIV, yet again another news video, this time a follow-up to the previous news video we talked about with the policy changes, the terms of service changes to Final Fantasy XIV in and around the actual game. And those policy changes were basically focused on RMT with some other refinements as well about party finder listings. So Toshio Miroshi, or as you might know him as Morbol, or whatever you want to call him, he has lots of different monikers. He is the global community producer for Final Fantasy XIV, and it was his decision to put this particular post up. And it says, "Thank you for reading over the recently updated Prohibited Activities and Account Penalty Policy. Following the update, there have been many lively discussions in the community. While we appreciate the interest shown by players, we've noticed instances where they were becoming overly worried as a result of hearsay or hearing only bits and pieces of the details. To this end, I'd like to follow up with a clarification regarding some of the larger points of discussion." Pardon me. It says, "If you haven't reviewed the recent changes, I encourage you to take this opportunity to do so." So it says, "As a premise, the update introduced two new party finder related prohibitions, but aside from these, there are no changes to communication related matters, and this policy won't have any significant impact on those who have been playing normally without incurring any violations." That is the key bit that they've put in red there. They say, "We'll hope you continue to be more considerate of others and play in your usual manner." So for those of you who were knee-jerk reacting, saying all of these new changes and looking at the policy and sort of reacting, knee-jerk reacting to that sort of stuff, those policy, agreements have been there for a long time prior to this particular thing. Basically, it changed from being "don't do this, we'll action upon it" to "really, please, do not do this or we will action upon it." That's the only difference, basically. The only things that have changed are these two communication-related matters, which we'll look at as well. So, yeah, it's worth to think about that. Does this mean I can no longer give other players any advice? We saw concerns that based on the examples of expressions that compel a playing style under nuisance behavior, players may not be able to say anything at all or have any means of offering advice. Getting to the point, there is no issue with offering advice. Communication is an important aspect of participating in duties with other players. The problem lies with attitudes such as, quote, "My opinion is absolute and everyone who doesn't listen is wrong," end quote, or behavior accompanied by arrogant, oppressive speech and conduct. Exchanging opinions is perfectly fine, as it's only natural that those receiving the advice will have their own ideas and opinions. Of course, there may be cases where you don't see eye to eye on opinions or principles, or cases where the person offering advice is correct and the person receiving it is in the wrong. Communication is not black and white, and the idea that offering a suggestion will be immediately equated to compelling a playstyle is too extreme. There may be times when you're met with an extreme or backhanded response, and in such cases, please feel free to file a report and entrust this decision to us. Rest assured, we do not issue penalties solely based on the fact that a report was filed, and will thoroughly investigate the logs for context as necessary before making a decision. Additionally, he says, there is an option to abandon the duty and disband should you feel that the other player is unwilling to accept your differences, as well as the option for the person feeling at odds with the group, which may be yourself, to leave the party. Using these various options at your disposal, rather than being fixated with offering advice or communicating opinions, is crucial in circumventing conflicts before they become overblown. Okay, end quote there. So basically, they're just saying have common sense, try to meet eye to eye, and if people don't meet eye to eye with you, and you can't, meet common ground, then they're telling you to either leave the group or vote abandon, and sort of like politely resolve the issue without resorting to childish behavior, or idiotic behavior is probably the better term for that, such as being overly critical, backhanded comments, insults, and so on, and abuse, because those are the things that will get you into trouble. Obviously, nothing's changed. That's been the same pretty much all the way through the game. So just be a normal person. If someone, tries to tell you how to do things, and you don't like it, the worst thing you could possibly do is reply to them with an insult. But at the same time, they're not going to take everything at face value. Square Enix will be looking at these thoroughly through chat logs, so there's no real way of hiding from that, realistically. So moving on to the other point then, is selling clears prohibited? Another topic I'd like to address is whether the new party finder restrictions prohibit mercenary activities, i.e. offering assistance with clearing duties or obtaining items in exchange for gil or other compensation in general. Though the situation varied with each region, there were an enormous number of cases where RMT vendors created recruitment listings in the Party Finder under the guise of mercenary activities, which hindered normal players in their use of the Party Finder. The changes made at this time are intended as measures to rectify the situation and promptly crack down on fraudulent recruitment listings. As a result, we've prohibited advertising mercenary activities in the Party Finder. But recruiting for mercenaries, i.e. offering compensation in exchange for assistance, is not prohibited. The key thing here in red text says, players seeking help are still allowed to create recruitment listings such as, quote, offering 100,000 gil per player if we clear, end quote. Moving forward, if you would like to engage in mercenary activities, we ask that you search for and join recruitment listings from players seeking help. Okay. On a final note, based on our experience, there have been many cases where penalized players didn't understand what they did wrong or what the issue was. So we added many examples to the Prohibited Activity section in hopes of lowering the number of such cases. While we've seen concerns that this will make it difficult to say anything at all, targeting certain expressions is not our intention. In other words, simply saying something mentioned in our examples doesn't necessarily guarantee a penalty. If a report is filed, the full context of the conversation is thoroughly investigated, and if we find a violation, only then will a penalty be imposed. As such, to reiterate, there is no need to worry about any more than before. Since the document only lists prohibited activities, looking at it by itself may give a dreadful impression, but aside from the two new Party Finder related prohibitions, we have merely added examples, and the rules themselves have not changed since the amendments in 2019. Therefore, and this is key, if you've been playing without incurring any violations and of course without receiving any penalties, then there will be no problem with playing as you usually do and remaining considerate of others. The document can be summed up as due to the nature of an online game, the people we encounter in game are also individuals with varying personalities, so our speech and conduct should always take others into consideration. We ask for your understanding regarding the purpose of the various agreements and prohibited activities, and appreciate your cooperation in ensuring the healthy operations of 14. That's Toshio Moroshi from the global community producer role of Final Fantasy XIV. So, in summary, just don't be annoying. Don't be that guy. As long as you're not being that guy, the annoying person, who's insulting people and telling people what they can't do with a violent attitude and backhanded comments here and there, you should be fine. If you got this far without being banned, then, you should be fine unless people aren't reporting you. In which case, if you are being somebody who is violating any of this stuff, it is a good idea for you to change your way of thinking and to be, as Toshio Marushi says here, be considerate of other people. It is common sense. People have blown this out of proportion. My video on it previously, we looked at this. I knew that a reaction was going to be like this, honestly. I knew people would take to social media and Reddit and start talking about how their freedom of speech is being taken away from them, that their rights were being taken away. As he said here in this document, nothing has changed since the amendments that they made to help people be more secure and to refine these policy changes since 2019. It is now nearly 2022. We're in 2021 right now. This is not a big deal. This is really not a big deal. Just because of examples being listed next to things, that should not be a red flag to anybody. If anything, that helps identify and add clarity, which was the purpose of their original statement in the first place. So don't be the sort of person who goes, oh, they're taking away our liberties. You know, no, it's fine. They're not the Garlean Empire. They're not taking over parts of your free will in real life. Just don't be that person that's going to get in trouble, right? Don't react negatively in a horrible way to people. Try to be considerate. If someone's being a bit of a potato, you report them, don't you? Right? And let Square Enix deal with that. As they've said, they're going to thoroughly take into consideration communication. That means your side of communication too. I know it's tempting to get heated with some people in the game, with snarky replies or whatever, but your best advice that I can give you is to report as soon as something is said that you think is violating you, and let Square Enix deal with it. Do not get baited into being the worst, party in this. It's going to be very subjective and case by case, but no one's got time for this. Enjoy the game. Be considerate of other people. You are all people, real life human beings playing this video game together. At the end of the day, is it worth losing your account over something so trivial as being, baited into an argument, or being that person with backhanded responses or demanding a certain thing? No, it's really not. It's really not. And if you do want to make like a set way of doing things, ideally joining a group that lists that specific strategy or whatever is probably the way to go, or to make a static, or to join a static group. That way you can agree privately to what you wish to do in terms of mechanics or whatever. And trust me, it is a lot more pleasurable to go into content knowing how you're going to do it, rather than having disappointment when you're inside of it. But there we go. That's just my few things. Just don't be that person. Don't be that negative person, and report if you feel violated for any of these rules. Simple as that. But yes, a lot of hyperbole, a lot of overhyped responses from people, but at the end of the day, nothing really has changed since 2019, and the game still promotes a positive player experience. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Try and be a little bit more considerate with your comments. I don't really like to have to fish things out of the filter when people start swearing profusely. So obviously there are filters on the channel that I don't have control over, so try and keep things civil basically, and then get your points across that way, and then you won't be immediately highlighted for removal by YouTube itself. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. Keep playing awesome games the way that you're supposed to. Be nice to just basically be cool to each other, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.